To survive a Gemini is to embark on an odyssey through the twin realms of air and change, a journey that defies the linear, defies the calm, and demands the full ignition of one's inner fire. A Gemini is not a person. They are a storm cloaked in charm, a riddle wrapped in intellect, a constellation of paradoxes held together by words and wings. From the moment you encounter them, you step into a cyclone of thought, a dance of duality, a rapid-fire symphony of curiosity and contradiction. To survive them is to ride the whirlwind without losing your center. Born under Mercury's dominion, the celestial messenger, Gemini is gifted with the alchemy of language, the velocity of thought, and a mind that never sleeps. They are not governed by the slow rhythms of the earth or the tides of emotion, but by the winds of movement, possibility, and change. Their words are spells, sometimes daggers, sometimes wings. Their conversations can lift you into stratospheres of enlightenment or plunge you into mazes of confusion, depending on the hour and the mood. They shift without warning, reinventing themselves mid-sentence, mid-thought, mid-love. To survive a Gemini, you must anchor yourself in the stillness of your own soul. You must know who you are with a certainty that doesn't require validation or constant reaffirmation. Gemini will test the limits of your patience, your consistency, your emotional depth. They are brilliant and buoyant but elusive, dancing just out of reach the moment you believe you've caught them. They are the breeze that cools and the gust that uproots. They will charm you with stories, dazzle you with ideas, and then vanish into the ether in pursuit of the next fascination. Do not chase them. Hold your ground. They are not meant to be captured but understood in motion. You must become fluent in the language of paradox. A Gemini may love you fiercely and forget to text you back. They may confess their devotion and flirt with strangers in the same breath. This is not betrayal. It is their nature. Their soul craves stimulation. Their mind needs expansion, and monotony is their silent assassin. Routine suffocates them. Predictability bores them. If you try to tether them with control or guilt, they will slip away, not out of malice but out of necessity. They cannot be caged, only inspired. The survival of a Gemini is an art of balance and bravery. You must learn when to speak and when to listen, when to match their momentum and when to remain still. You must not take their distractions personally, for their attention spans are tuned to cosmic frequencies beyond the reach of earthly anchors. You are not in competition with their thoughts. You are a witness to their wonder. If you try to pin them down, they will become smoke. If you learn to fly beside them, they will become light. It is also essential to nurture your own interests, to cultivate your own mind and passions. For nothing captivates a Gemini more than someone who is equally enchanted by life. Bring your own sparks to the fire. Challenge them. Make them think. They respect wit more than sentiment, and intrigue more than devotion. Show them the map of your own galaxy and they might choose to orbit you, not because they must, but because they want to. When they retreat, give them space. When they return, welcome them with no bitterness. Understand that their love is not always steady, but it is real in the moment it is given. To love a Gemini is to love the breeze through your window, fleeting, refreshing, and always moving. And yet, that breeze may pass 1,000 places and still return to you, drawn by the gravity of something unseen but felt. Do not expect Gemini to be what they are not. They are not the slow-burning ember of Taurus, nor the protective tide of Cancer. They are lightning, they are wind, they are thought incarnate. If you can ride their storm with grace, you will find a companion who sees the world through 1,000 eyes, who will never let your mind grow dull, who will lift you with laughter and ignite you with ideas. But if you require constancy, silence, or emotional predictability, you may find yourself lost in their labyrinth, undone by your own unmet expectations. To survive a Gemini is to awaken the adventurer within you. It is to live with eyes wide open, heart resilient, and soul ready to evolve. It is to embrace change as a dance partner and chaos as a muse. And in that storm, if you are strong enough to remain yourself, you may find that surviving a Gemini is not about endurance, but about transformation. They do not come to leave you as they found you. They are the wind that shapes the mountain, the idea that changes the world, the moment that makes you come alive. So if you stand at the edge of a Gemini's world, do not retreat in fear. Step forward with courage. You are not just surviving, you are soaring. To survive a Gemini is not only to endure the storm of their mind, but to come to terms with the alchemical dance of shadow and light that defines their dual nature. Beneath the flickering lanterns of their ever-curious intellect lies a deeper terrain that few take the time or courage to navigate. The Gemini soul is ruled by Mercury, the trickster god, the messenger between worlds, the wielder of paradox. This makes the Gemini not just an intellectual acrobat, but a guardian of thresholds, between truth and illusion, play and seriousness, the seen and the unseen. They are not merely playful. They are initiates of liminal space. And to truly survive them, one must understand that this duality is sacred. There is an ancient wisdom in their restlessness. While others root themselves in tradition, Gemini is the one who climbs the mountain to see if there is more beyond. They are born with antennas tuned to frequencies others ignore. Their apparent inconsistency is not a flaw, but a cosmic function. In the grand theater of the zodiac, Gemini holds the role of the ever-moving translator, of gods, of dreams, of signs, of all that speaks between the lines. They live in symbols, metaphors, and infinite possibility. And in this role, they are never still because truth itself is a moving target to them. They chase it with the fervor of a prophet and the delight of a child. Gemini energy is often misunderstood as superficial, but in truth it is expansive. It gathers, collects, connects. It is the web that holds knowledge from every shore. A Gemini does not seek depth in the traditional sense, like water signs do. They dive not into one ocean, but into countless rivers, lakes, and rainstorms. Their depth is found in multiplicity, in how many layers they can juggle at once, in how many perspectives they can entertain without collapsing into singularity. This is not fragmentation, it is multivalence, it is brilliance in kaleidoscopic form. To survive them, one must respect the sacredness of their freedom. They are ruled by air, which cannot be owned. The moment you seek to confine them, you break the magic. They are not meant to be held, but to be danced with. The relationship with a Gemini is a rhythm, a call and response, a jazz improvisation more than a rehearsed ballet. They will not follow the choreography of society or conventional romance. They create their own steps on a whim, with laughter, with genius, with chaos. But if you are bold enough to match their movement, you will never tire, because they will always reinvent the dance. There is also a deep loneliness that follows Gemini like a shadow. For all their charisma and social magnetism, there exists within them an aching desire to be understood, not just by anyone, but by someone who sees beyond their masks and games, into the sacred space where their contradictions reconcile. Few reach this place, for it is hidden beneath wit and distraction. But it is there, pulsing with silent longing. To survive a Gemini is also to witness this hidden longing without exploiting it, to hold space for their truth without needing to fix it, to let them reveal themselves in fragments, trusting that even the fragments contain worlds. Mercury's influence blesses them with the gift of metamorphosis. Geminis do not age in the same way others do. They evolve. They molt their skin, change their voice, shift their vision. They can be many people in one lifetime and sometimes in one day. To survive this mercurial force, you must be comfortable with reinvention. You must love not just who they are, but the process of who they are becoming. You must meet them anew over and over again. This does not mean abandoning your own identity. On the contrary, it requires that your identity be so rooted and vibrant that it can meet theirs in full spectrum. A Gemini will never be the mirror that reflects you in static terms. They will be the prism that bends your light into new colors. They will challenge you with contradictions, push you toward questions you never dared to ask, and laugh in the face of things you took too seriously. Their irreverence is a kind of spiritual medicine, a reminder that life is too sacred to be so rigid, too vast to be so certain. They are ruled by the mutable modality, which teaches adaptability, elasticity, and resilience. In surviving them, you absorb this wisdom into your bones. Surviving a Gemini also means mastering the art of communication at its highest frequency. They thrive in realms of language, not just spoken but written, symbolic, coded. To reach them, you must learn to speak with your mind and your soul. You must be willing to debate, to joke, to theorize, to hypothesize, to question the unquestionable. If you bring silence without presence, they will drift. If you bring speech without substance, they will vanish. The communion must be electric, alive, constantly renewed by the friction of ideas. In the mythic dimension, Gemini carries echoes of the twins Castor and Pollux, one mortal and one divine. This archetype reveals that part of Gemini's nature lives in the heavens while the other walks among mortals. One side of them seeks divine knowledge, cosmic truth, limitless expansion. The other is bound by the chaos of human emotion and limitation. To survive them is to navigate this paradox, to love the parts of them that soar and the parts that stumble. It is to accept that they will never be fully one or the other. They are both, always both. You must become a weaver of your own fate, someone who does not need their clarity to find your way. You must hold your vision like a torch, knowing that Gemini may light it further or challenge its shape, but they cannot define it for you. If you depend on them for emotional stability, you will fall. But if you meet them as an equal, as a fellow traveler on the winds of becoming, they will respect you, even love you in their own wild way. Surviving a Gemini is not an act of defense. It is an invitation to transformation. It is a passage through the mirror, a rite of awakening. They are not here to teach you how to be safe. They are here to teach you how to be alive, utterly, unapologetically, vividly alive. If you accept this, if you rise to meet their flight, you will not merely survive them. You will emerge from the journey reborn. Not the same person who entered, but someone vaster, wiser, freer. And that is the hidden gift in the chaos. Gemini is not the storm that destroys. They are the wind that clears the sky, the mind that opens doors, the voice that sparks revolutions. To dance with them is to join that current of ever-becoming. And for those bold enough to endure it, there is no greater liberation. To endure the full spectrum of Gemini energy is to embrace not just the wind and the whirlwind, but the invisible architecture of the zodiac that supports such celestial chaos. Gemini is the third sign, where the spark of Aries and the grounding of Taurus culminate in awareness. A sharp, sudden awakening to the multitude of voices that the universe contains. This is where thought first fractures into variety, where the cosmos itself realizes it can be more than one thing at once. In this sacred third phase of the astrological cycle, Gemini becomes the divine messenger, not merely delivering truths, but questioning them, reframing them, transforming them with each breath. What must be understood in deeper layers is Gemini's connection to the nervous system, to the invisible network through which all energy flows. Their ruler, Mercury, presides over information, cognition, coordination, not just in speech but in the transmission of consciousness itself. To be close to a Gemini is to plug into this live wire. It is to feel your own nervous system awaken, to have your thoughts accelerated, disrupted, enhanced, confused, and clarified all at once. They are not just talkers, they are carriers of frequency. They do not merely speak, they encode. And surviving them means not shrinking from this voltage, but learning how to regulate your own current, how to withstand their surges without short-circuiting. There is magic in the hands of a Gemini. Astrologically, this sign governs the arms, the fingers, the dexterity of creation. They are often drawn to crafts, instruments, anything that lets thought flow into form with speed and elegance. They are the scribes of ancient kingdoms, the poets in smoke-filled rooms, the pianists whose fingers blur in symphony. To truly understand their nature, one must watch what they do when they're not speaking. The fidgeting, the writing, the sketching, the building of mental empires out of toothpicks and stardust. They think with their hands, speak with their gestures, love with their movement. And if you do not read these languages, you miss half of who they are. Their duality is not always loud. There exists within some Geminis a haunted silence, a shadow of stillness that contradicts the surface frenzy. This is the side few see, and even fewer understand, the quiet twin. The one who watches from the corners, who feels the weight of every word spoken, who mourns the moments when their true self is lost in the performance. For every Gemini that dazzles a crowd, there is another within them who is overwhelmed by the very energy they generate. This internal dissonance is part of their sacred blueprint. It must be honored. To survive them, one must make space for both the whirlwind and the whisper, the extrovert and the exile. In mythology, Mercury, Hermes, was also the guide of souls to the underworld. This facet is crucial and often ignored. Gemini is not merely light-hearted trickster, they are psychopomp. They walk between realms. They can speak to the dead in dreams, receive insights in symbols, navigate sorrow with startling clarity. They may hide this gift behind humor, behind distraction, behind logic, but it is there. They feel the undercurrents. They know when someone is lying. They sense when a room shifts. This is not paranoia, it is attunement. It is the cost of being so open to the signals of the world. And it can exhaust them. Often, what seems like withdrawal or flakiness is simply recovery, the need to tune out the noise of the world they hear too loudly. Gemini is also inherently childlike, not immature, but full of primordial wonder. Their curiosity is a holy engine that never ceases. Theirs is not the wisdom of the sage in the cave, but the insight of the child who never stopped asking why. They are ruled not by the need to conquer, but to discover. This makes them teachers in disguise, offering truths not with solemnity, but with sparkle. They are jesters, but jesters were once the only ones who could speak truth to kings. In this lies their quiet power. Their laughter is often a mirror. Their games a test. Their chaos a form of intelligence more primal than planning. In love, Gemini expresses themselves with contradiction. They may say things they do not mean and mean things they never say. They may vanish when they care the most, because emotional vulnerability strips them of their clever defenses. Words are their shield, and intimacy often renders them wordless. They might joke when they're in pain. They might flirt when they're afraid. Understanding this emotional misfiring is essential to surviving them. Beneath the dissonance is a real desire for connection, but it must come without pressure, without demand. Let them find the words in their own time. Let them come home to you not because you insisted, but because you waited without turning cold. Gemini has no tolerance for stagnation. If you try to hold them still, they will erupt. If you grow dull in your spirit, they will retreat, not out of cruelty, but because their soul wilts without change. They need to see you evolve, to witness your transformation. To be in their presence is to be constantly invited to level up. This is why they often attract intense karmic partners, not because they are always stable themselves, but because their presence accelerates growth. They are mirrors of potential, of what could be if only you dared to imagine more. In this way, Gemini is a cosmic initiator. They arrive in your life not to fulfill a script, but to burn it. They rewrite your expectations. They shift your trajectory. Their arrival is often a turning point, marked by laughter, confusion, ecstasy, and then silence. But even if they vanish, their imprint remains. They awaken ideas you didn't know you had. They leave trails of inspiration long after they've gone. Surviving them, then, is not about resisting the impermanence. It is about honoring the awakening. To live beside them is to remember that the zodiac is a circle, not a ladder. Gemini is not a phase to transcend, but a force to revisit, to reawaken within ourselves. They remind us of what it means to think freely, to speak boldly, to change unapologetically. They are air not meant to be owned, but essential to breath. And those who survive them without bitterness, without demands, emerge lighter, sharper, and more alive than ever before. In the epic story of the self, Gemini is the herald of transformation, the messenger who arrives when it is time to break the spell of certainty. They whisper in your ear not only ideas but permission to become more, to think differently, to never stop moving forward. And in the end, survival is too small a word. What Gemini offers is not mere endurance, it is ascension. To continue the odyssey of surviving a Gemini is to acknowledge that one must become not only a witness to their duality but a disciple of the wind itself. Gemini does not operate within the simple laws of emotional cause and effect. They are governed by the quantum mechanics of thought, shifting timelines and possibilities with each choice. each spark of interest, each flick of the eye. Their world is not bound to one dimension of time or expectation. They move through parallel realities, imagining, improvising, becoming. Their essence is not merely fast-moving, it is multidimensional. Gemini is not one twin or the other. They are the space in between. They live in that sacred liminal zone between breath and speech, idea and action, memory and myth. To truly survive them, one must stop chasing one face of them and instead surrender to the sacred geometry of their wholeness. They are not to be interpreted as chaos incarnate, but as a living constellation that refuses to be still, because movement is their language and contradiction their poetry. Their loyalty is not expressed through predictability but through presence in the now. Gemini is not the builder of monuments but the spark that lights the fire within them. They may not remember every anniversary or recite every detail, but they will remember how your laughter tasted on a specific night beneath a foreign sky. They are masters of the moment, devourers of the now. They teach that love is not a fixed script but an evolving dialogue. The more one demands structure from them, the more their spirit disintegrates. Survival is not about expecting consistency, but about dancing with the pulse of transformation. Their restlessness is often labeled as avoidance, but in its truest form, it is pilgrimage. The Gemini spirit is always seeking its other half, not in another person, but in the completion of an idea, the harmony of a metaphor, the final note of an unfinished symphony playing in the corridors of their imagination. They are not afraid to leave places, people, or patterns that no longer resonate, not because they are disloyal, but because they are devoted to truth in motion. To stay stagnant is to betray the very core of who they are. To survive them is to honor that sacred contract they hold with evolution. Emotion, for Gemini, is not denied. It is simply filtered through the mind first. Their heart does not speak in the language of tears alone, but in metaphors, symbols, and paradoxes. When they speak in riddles or jokes, it is not always out of avoidance, but as a form of emotional protection. They feel deeply, often more than they allow themselves to admit. Their logic is a fortress and a bridge. Many times they will analyze their feelings before they let themselves feel them. This delay is not coldness. It is the mind's attempt to create order in a soul that is too vast, too bright, too fast to be pinned down by linear emotion. There is something divinely frustrating about the Gemini's inconsistency. And yet, this very inconsistency is a mirror of life itself. The stars do not shine in stillness. They pulse, they shift, they are born and die in flashes. Gemini reminds us that beauty is found in fleeting sparks, not fixed certainties. They call us out of our comfort zones, out of our carefully constructed walls. They dare us to be real, to be raw, to admit we are still becoming. This is where their power lies, not in being figured out, but in being followed into the unknown. Astrologically, Gemini's placement in a chart can act like a lightning rod, activating whatever it touches with thought, curiosity, and movement. When their energy fuses with other elements, say, the intensity of Scorpio or the steadiness of Capricorn, it creates a unique storm, an unpredictable alchemy that can bring either innovation or chaos depending on how it is held. But this is what makes them invaluable on the cosmic wheel. They are not meant to complete you. They are meant to disrupt you in the most necessary way, to wake you up, to challenge your definition of self and other, to throw open the window of your soul and let the wind blow away the dust. Their romantic energy is not transactional. It is ritualistic in its own unique way. Every conversation is a portal. Every glance is a signal. Every word is a spell. They are not lovers in the traditional sense of security and repetition. They are lovers of minds, of ideas, of energy that can match their own. If you survive their tempest, you earn a place in their internal mythology. And that place, though intangible, is immortal. Once loved by a Gemini, you live forever in the pages of their story. Maybe not with permanence in form, but with presence in memory and influence in evolution. They are sometimes drawn to chaos, not because they love pain, but because they crave intensity. Boredom is poison to them. Predictability is decay. They seek minds that provoke, hearts that challenge, souls that do not apologize for their own fire. If you want to survive a Gemini, you must have a fire that does not beg to be fed. You must burn in your own rhythm, because they will not carry you. They will fly, and they will expect you to either leap or let go. They are neither cruel nor careless. They are simply fast. Fast in thought, in decision, in departure. They move like Mercury, winged and wild, sent not to stay but to deliver. But if you learn to speak their language, to walk at their speed, to hear the deeper silence behind their noise, you may find that they do stay, not in one form, not in one place, but in spirit, in presence, in the echo of every thought they stirred within you. Surviving a Gemini is not a battle, but an awakening. It is not an act of endurance, but of elevation. It is the realization that life is too alive to be static, that love is too sacred to be caged, that the self is too infinite to be known completely. They are the spark that never rests, and to love them, to endure them, to grow beside them, is to become unafraid of your own vastness. Gemini does not come to complete you. They come to crack you open so that you remember. You, too, contain multitudes. To step deeper into the labyrinth of Gemini's essence is to understand that their existence is not a linear story but a cosmic weave of threads spun by the stars themselves. Gemini is not merely a sign. It is a state of being, a sacred contradiction, an eternal movement of thought and vibration. Their soul vibrates on a higher frequency, dancing between dimensions of awareness most are too anchored to perceive. To endure them, one must become a seeker of the unseen, a warrior of the subtle, an initiate of the infinite. The element of air which governs Gemini is the least tangible, the least understood, yet the most omnipresent. It is the breath of life, the voice of the wind, the force that carries the seeds of vision from one horizon to another. Gemini is the first embodiment of this air, the wild breath of spring, the ungraspable current that whispers to all who dare listen that the world is far larger than it seems. Their thoughts are not bound by gravity, and neither are their loyalties or their truths. To meet them with expectations of permanence is to misunderstand the very architecture of their spirit. They are not here to settle in your home. They are here to awaken your wings. In the zodiac wheel, Gemini follows Taurus, the earthbound builder, the sensual stabilizer. And it is Gemini's divine duty to disrupt that stability, not out of destruction, but as an evolutionary impulse. Where Taurus says, stay, Gemini says, move. Where Taurus says, own, Gemini says, exchange. They are the celestial tricksters who remind the soul that it must never confuse comfort with growth. Their role is to deliver the cosmic telegram, even if their hands tremble from carrying truths too heavy for their size. They are the lightning bolt between realms, the mythic messenger who must move, must speak, must illuminate. Even when misunderstood, they carry on, because their mission is too sacred to surrender. Within them lies the archetype of the storyteller. Not just the bard, not just the orator, but the living tale themselves. They are not one identity but many. Each version of them is a chapter, each encounter with them a stanza in the song of your own becoming. They wear masks, not to deceive, but to explore. Their shifting faces are not betrayals but testaments to the complexity of spirit. The moment you believe you have known them fully is the moment you lose them, for they will become something else entirely. It is not to evade you, but to stay true to the wind within. Gemini's relationship with time is also unlike any other. They exist in temporal multiplicity, reliving the past in memory, projecting into the future with ideas, and darting through the present in moments of sudden inspiration. They are always ahead and behind at once, which is why they may seem distracted or distant even when physically near. They are carrying multiple timelines inside them, and not all of them are visible. They are guided by pulses, not plans. To expect them to move by clocks alone is to deny their nature as temporal shapeshifters. Theirs is a dance of kairos, not chronos, sacred timing, not scheduled time. They are often underestimated because their power is not loud in traditional ways. They may not seek command or conquest, but their influence is vast and lasting. Like pollen on the wind, their words carry magic that roots in others long after they are gone. Many revolutions began with the whispers of a Gemini. Many dreams found wings in their laughter. They do not always witness the impact they create, but it exists, etched in minds, seated in hearts, echoing in choices made because of a moment shared with them. They do not demand recognition because they are already in motion toward the next horizon. The mind of a Gemini is an instrument tuned to the symphony of the cosmos. It absorbs, dissects, reinvents. It does not rest because it is wired to seek. Curiosity is not a trait. It is a lifeline. Without it, they wither. Without stimulation, they grieve. And yet, in their search for stimulation, they sometimes encounter the ache of overstimulation. In this lies the paradox of their nature. Craving connection but needing solitude, desiring conversation but fleeing stillness. The world is often too loud and too quiet at once for them. They live on the threshold, needing both the crowd and the cave. And to survive them, you must learn to honor both. Beneath the surface-level cheer, beneath the brightness they offer, often lies a loneliness so profound it cannot be named. It is the loneliness of one who sees too much, knows too much, but feels they cannot stay long enough to be fully seen themselves. Many Geminis carry the wound of being mirrored by none, of being touched by many but truly held by few. They often protect this pain with wit, with stories, with charm. But those who dare to see beyond the veil will find a heart that yearns not for perfection, but for resonance, a meeting of frequencies, not fantasies. They are often drawn to paradoxical souls, those who, like them, contain opposites. They are not afraid of contradictions in others because they are walking contradictions themselves. In fact, they seek those who dare to be messy, complex, real. They do not need perfection. They need motion, honesty, friction. Love, for them, is not about security but symphony. It must sing, it must burn, it must expand. Anything less is suffocating. And yet, if you can hold their fire without trying to tame it, they will return to you, not as a possession but as a co-creator. To survive them, one must also be willing to lose the need for labels. Gemini defies categorization. They are not one word, not one role, not one path. They are the possibility that language itself is not enough. They are poetry beyond syntax, rhythm beyond rule. In the deepest astrological truth, Gemini is not a test to pass, but a transformation to endure. They push you not because they wish to hurt you, but because they sense your own buried brilliance, your unused wings. In their eyes, you see your potential reflected, and it may scare you. But if you lean in, if you rise to meet them not with resistance but with resonance, you may discover not just who they are, but who you are becoming because of them. Their season, the gateway to summer, is no accident. They are the spark before the blaze, the threshold before the radiance. And just as the earth bursts into bloom, so too does the spirit bloom beside them. They are the clarion call, the untamed hymn of the wind reminding the soul that it was never meant to stay dormant. And so, survival becomes too small a word for what they initiate. To walk with Gemini is to ascend into the whirlwind. To love them is to accept the unending nature of becoming. To endure them is to awaken. And to awaken is to fly. To fully immerse in the untamed spirit of Gemini is to enter a realm where logic and magic intertwine, where language is alchemy and perception bends to the will of consciousness. Their power is often mistaken for frivolity by those who see only the surface of their ever-shifting presence. But beneath the playful glimmer, beneath the stream of conversation and sudden laughter, lies a sacred force of mental transmutation. Gemini does not simply think, they transfigure reality with thought alone. Their words are not idle. They are spells, invocations of possibility, pathways carved into the unseen fabric of the world. They are the sacred scribes of the zodiac, the eternal learners whose thirst for understanding is not casual but cosmic. In the mythology that guides astrology's deeper currents, Gemini is ruled by Mercury, the divine messenger, the god who alone could travel between worlds, Olympus, Earth, and the underworld. This is no minor archetype. This is the gatekeeper of boundaries and the translator of mysteries. In every Gemini, this archetype lives fiercely. They are born to cross thresholds, to defy walls, to whisper truths where silence once reigned. They carry within them the memory of every language ever spoken and every truth yet to be named. They bring the fires of understanding to the shadows of confusion. But this sacred mission is not without cost. Those who bridge worlds often live between them, never fully of one place, never entirely still. The duality of Gemini is not a flaw but a divine design. It is not a split but a spectrum. The two twins are not in conflict, they are in communion. One looks to the sky, the other to the earth. One dreams, the other deciphers. This dual current allows Gemini to hold paradox with elegance. They do not need certainty to move forward. They do not require clear answers to act. In their embrace of ambiguity lies their genius. They teach us to breathe in the unknown and exhale creation. In their presence, we learn that truth does not always arrive fully formed. Sometimes it arrives in pieces, scattered across conversations, thoughts, glances, and revelations. There is an electric defiance in Gemini's refusal to be pinned down. Theirs is not rebellion for rebellion's sake, but a sacred refusal to betray their essence. To box them in is to kill the fire of insight that blazes within them. Even in love, they will not be owned. They will dance with you through realms of imagination, seduce you with the possibility of infinite futures. But if you try to trap them in expectations, their light will dim and eventually disappear. They seek love that expands, not encloses. Connection that breathes, not binds. And when they find it, they offer everything, not in permanence, but in presence. A Gemini in alignment is the purest form of devotion that freedom can offer. They are drawn to creation in all its forms. Art, music, writing, teaching. These are not hobbies for Gemini. They are vital expressions of their essence. Communication is not an activity but a lifeline. They must speak, must share, must channel the torrent of energy flowing through them. And yet, for all their expression, they can be difficult to truly read. Like ancient scripts written in stardust, their meaning must be felt beyond language. To understand a Gemini is to release your dependence on predictability and open yourself to intuition, to resonance, to vibration. Their truth may not arrive in declarations. It may arrive in metaphors or sudden silences, or in the way they change the air when they walk into a room. The nervous system of Gemini is finely tuned, perhaps more so than any other sign. They are sensitive not in a traditional emotional sense, but energetically. They pick up on undercurrents, absorb data, feel tones and implications most ignore. This makes them brilliant and responsive, but also vulnerable to overload. Their restlessness is not always a sign of boredom. It is often the body's attempt to release the excess of impressions they carry. Stillness, while difficult, is essential for them to return to clarity. Those who love them must learn to offer them space not as distance, but as medicine. They must be allowed to exhale, to recalibrate, to empty before they overflow. The karmic path of Gemini is one of integration. They are born knowing how to scatter light, but their evolution lies in learning how to gather it, how to wield it, how to become a focused flame rather than a flickering spark. When they begin to center their energy, when they slow their breath and choose presence with intention, they become unstoppable. Their vision sharpens, their voice deepens, their insight pierces veils. They shift from being windblown to windborne, from being carried by chaos to commanding the currents. And in that state, they become sacred architects of thought, rebuilding the world word by word, choice by choice, insight by insight. Many underestimate the courage it takes to live as a Gemini, to be so mentally alive in a world that numbs, to be so curious in a society that demands conformity, to be so aware in a culture that fears contradiction. Gemini does not shrink before this. They laugh in the face of monotony, challenge the dullness of habit, incite evolution in places where stagnation has rooted deep. Their courage is not loud like a fire sign's roar, but quick like lightning, striking where it's least expected and leaving behind sudden clarity. They carry the soul of a trickster, not to deceive, but to disrupt illusions. They remind us that seriousness is not the same as wisdom, and that playfulness can be sacred. Through their lightness, they unearth heaviness. Through their contradictions, they mirror our own. They are not easy, nor are they meant to be, but they are vital. The cosmos placed them in our path not to soothe, but to awaken, To walk beside a Gemini is to enter a relationship with change itself. It is not survival in the traditional sense. It is rebirth. It is resurrection. It is remembering that the self is not a statue, but a river. That love is not a cage, but a current. That life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be danced with. Gemini does not ask you to follow. They invite you to fly. And in that flight, should you dare take it, you will find yourself becoming not just someone who survived the wind, but someone who became the wind.